Hello, our friends, Evolutionary, EEARTS, Hearts Home Family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Welcome one, welcome all. Please do subscribe to all three channels. And a lot of times you will find that we're kind of elaborating on a theme. And I just felt like we should elaborate on what we touched on Evolutionary, which I haven't updated here, refreshed. We just did one where we're talking about a lot of things going on as far as the geopolitical, but also talking about a new variant of the plague upon the land, which they've leveled the Arcturus variant. This system knows no bounds. I mean, honestly, and again, make sure you got the little bell click to all three channels. So this is a little PDF. Dimensions, a casebook of alien contact by Jacques Valet. Jacques Valet was very interesting and fun reading for me as a kid. My interest in all this started when I was a kid and first able to read. And a lot of times I would gravitate towards books that I couldn't even understand a lot of the words. And still I would just trudge into them and get my dictionary out and okay, what does this mean? Okay, what does that mean? Jacques Valet, and Dr. Jacques Valet, is interesting in that he was one of the first ones in our times that was really looking at mythology and looking at it in a new light and looking at the UFO phenomenon, aliens, extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, and seeing these as modern mythology, but also connecting the fact that mythology has roots in something that's got to be real, right? I mean, there has to be some basis. Did this just pop out of our, they want us to think, that we're always thinking in terms of archetypes, perhaps, and yeah, there are archetypes. There is a structure to the universe. There is a pattern to creation. Obviously, it's a fractal, universe that we find manifested before us. But yet, yes, there are archetypes and there are distinct real beings that we're talking about and real encounters with different types of beings. And so he was one of the first ones to kind of look into this and say, some of this alien abduction phenomenon with the grays and all, it kind of reminds me of some of the mythologies we hear about with elves. Now, elves and grays are actually two different things from our understanding, but yet I can understand why you might categorize them together. And this is John E Mack, who passed away, did great research, putting people under and then getting them to uncover the reasons why they're going through traumas in their life. And what he found was a lot of people were actually suffering from alien abductions and alien encounters. Alien, now again, we should probably distinguish and say extraterrestrial interdimensional beings, because again, we are living and experiencing a reality very much like one particular channel on a radio. Turn the dial, you're going to bring a new channel into focus. Turn it the other way, you'll bring another channel into focus. They're all right there. It just matters what you're tuned into, and that depends on your frequency. And there are beings that can control their frequency and can move up and down the dial at will. So if you want to look into the extraterrestrial interdimensional aspect of things and look at it from the viewpoint of a doctor or psychiatrist, look into these guys if you haven't yet. And maybe if it's been 20, 30 years, for those that are old enough, you might want to revisit. It is always fascinating to see these things and these actual case studies, because as we were talking about with another person recently, if I had to guess, I think at least 10 to 15% of the population has had direct encounters of this type.
I definitely feel there's a lot more than what people think. I think it's pretty common, which is unfortunate. But, this is something like when I look at it, I don't like to focus on that because there is a lot of trauma in this life. There's a lot going on. And if we go external outside of ourselves and pull in more trauma, especially with something that we really don't know how to deal with to begin with. So, I mean, looking at this, understanding it, reading it, and saying, okay, well, this is what it is. But then we have to pull ourselves back into the 3D because these are the things that are really going on and work on ourselves. And if there is PTSD involved, figuring out the root cause of that in the 3D is what's going to help us.
Absolutely. And, again, if we want to view it as this world is under satanic control, then they're going to label things for us, perhaps in the inverse as to what they really are. And many people have caught on to this after the fact. And one of the things that is just expected is that they'll label things, something that has been connected with benevolence and love and, teaching how the world and universe works at the highest levels. The goddess Isis, who in Egyptian is called Aset, as something bad. Here they have a terrorist group they've labeled ISIS, and we've talked about this at length, where Isis herself is a goddess. Now we've labeled her a goddess, but what is she really? She's an extraterrestrial, interdimensional being. That's what she is. She's not originating from the earth. Nope. She existed before the earth was the earth. And in fact, as we've shared with you guys, the earth at one point in time was Tiamat. And again, they've distorted that. They have Marduk, the Anunnakian being, fighting Tiamat, who is described as a serpent, right? And slaying Tiamat. In reality, it's the Anunnaki taking control, and the Anunnaki are nothing but just they're slaves. They're slaves of the draconian AI empire. And, they are labeling everything in the inverse to what it is. So it should be no surprise that a terrorist group would be labeled ISIS, a benevolent being, who is, again, really an extraterrestrial, interdimensional being that came to Earth in order to teach humanity how to ascend, how to live in a loving way with each other, and, get ready to be part of a intergalactic family. Now, the control grid wants to keep us all separate, so they make fearful representations of things in which there is no fear really associated. And look at this, here you see the two snakes, and of course they've given you the Bible. The Bible is the Anunnakian control, the Anunnakian draconian control manual. So is the Quran. There are truths in there because they're taken from other sources that are older, but they're rehashed in a way that twists and distorts it to suit their purposes. If you look at the AMA symbol, you're only going to see one serpent. And when we look at this, which is indicative again of the Ida and the Pingala, those are the masculine and feminine energy circuits in the body that when they're in balance and harmony will rise up when there's no blockages caused by traumas in the chakras in the body, because yes, there are chakras. It's even been grudgingly verified by science, that, I just think back to 20, 30 years ago when I was talking about these things to fundamentalist friends, trying to get them to see the bigger picture. Oh no, chakras are of the devil. Oh, I don't want my chakras opened. I might get demonically possessed. No, if your chakras are closed, you probably are demonically possessed. It's the exact opposite, but it's the indoctrination. So when we are in balance, the energy can flow. Now, that doesn't mean the distortion of what the world is giving us as being balanced, as in there's no genders. Obviously. Things are made for a reason, and the higher self chooses whichever side it's going to come in. If it's going to come in the yin as a yin, or if it's going to come in as a yang, so to speak, that's chosen by the higher self. It's not an accident. Again, this is all a distortion of everything that is natural, and this is so sad. But again, people of a fundamentalist persuasion seeing a serpent will, have fear and recoil from that, because no, they don't want you developing your intuition. They don't want you awakening the pineal gland and becoming christened, anointed. Why do they anoint the third eye area? I mean, all this, what they're doing is they're symbolically sealing your third eye. Hello. So now we have the Arcturus variant. Yeah, Arcturus. Why Arcturus? Because these guys are benevolent teachers, and they gotta, associate fear with their name. Many people are waking up and realizing the reality of these extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings we speak of as the Arcturians, who are very high frequency. These are master geneticists, but these are benevolent beings. They don't want to cause any harm. There is a distortion going on in Gaia, I will share with you again, that's making these beings to be out a much lower frequency than they are, even though they might speak of them in an overall positive light. They're portraying them as being much closer to us than they really are. These are light beings. These are very, very high vibrational beings. These are beings on a level far beyond any Marduk, any Enki, any Enlil, any of these guys. They're way beyond that. And they are working on many of us all the time, trying to help us in our ascension, trying to help us to reach the higher densities, help us to shift out of the dark age. So it should be no surprise that they are going to label a variant, quote unquote, of the plague upon the land. And then again, you'll get some people that even say things like, again, they just try to pull the direction of truth and of the light off into a different direction by arguing things like flat earth or do viruses exist and everything. And viruses are not natural. Viruses are part of the AI.
Mm-hmm. There's so much going on here. And yes, I mean, everything is reversed. Things that they want to label as good and pure and natural couldn't be further from the truth, but everyone has to walk this path on their own. Now, these beings are very benevolent. You can call them in for assistance. They are master healers. You can call them in for help in training, for help in healing. They have a specific power with their mind and their ability to manifest. Their pineal glands are oh so powerful. Their minds are oh so powerful. So they understand the importance of thought and what thought does. So they're very careful in what they think, because to us also, to a degree, what we think becomes. And that's something. Thoughts are things, and we really, really need to get a handle on that, because look at the external outside media. They're always putting all these things in front of our face for us to think about, for that to become. And we have to realize what we are exposing ourselves to, because that's going to have an influence on the world out there. And then remembering we are antennas, we are receivers. So again, throwing that fear around out there, we're going to receive that information and behave as such. So we do have to protect ourselves to a high degree, especially in this dark Kali Yuga. Very important to learn protection techniques.
Absolutely. And it could be very, very simple. You can go through a different process of just getting yourself into a comfortable position and just visualize yourself connecting to the earth, and open up your foot chakras, sink them deep down into the core of the earth. And there you can visualize yourself seeing this ball of plasma. You could visualize it as pure white. If you need more overall healing, you could visualize it as a crystalline green. Think of Irish countryside, rolling hills, and the bright, vibrant green. Anything that connects you to this feeling of healthy fullness. And then draw that life force up into the body with each breath. At each inhale, bring it into the body. And then you could draw in also from the cosmos, see a light coming down from the cosmos. You could either visualize it as crystalline, you could visualize it as a violet light, very high vibrational frequency that will also drive out any sort of dark entities. As when we go up into the visual light spectrum, as you go into magenta and violet, you start hitting the highest spectrum of visible light. Those are very, very useful frequencies for actually getting viruses under control. And, again, when you look at it like viruses, if we do think of viruses in computer terminology, that's what really they kind of are, because they are in there to rewrite a code. They're in there to cause disruption to the natural encoding of the human DNA. And they do the same with computers. So there's another, kind of as above, so below thing. When we look at the UFO phenomenon, I think many, maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of people look at the abduction phenomenon. And yes, there is a dark abduction phenomenon that's underway. Absolutely. And, so many people have had these experiences with either the little grays or other types of dark, creepy, crawly entities. They've felt that they can't move, that they're paralyzed, that they're stuck, they have sleep paralysis. And so many people have given in-depth descriptions of what's happened when they've had these. This is a figure from Betty Andreasen, who was in Connecticut, and this particular case, I remember buying a book when I was a kid and reading about it because she saw little grays, but she also saw Nordic-looking, quote-unquote, Pleiadian-looking extraterrestrials as well. And what they told her was they were monitoring, almost like they're monitoring climate change, is what they were talking about way back. And this is, I want to say it's either early 70s or late 60s. And the harmful effects of toxins on humans. They're checking the DNA levels, and I don't doubt that that's the case. But again, when you see a lot of these entities, they're part of the control grid. The Arcturians are not part of the controllers. They're way above the controllers' frequency, way above. So many kids have had these experiences. My kids did. Cindy's kids have. And my dad did, and I think it's the same case with Cindy's dad. So, again, this is very, very common, very, very common. And while you do have this dark agenda that is all about, genetic manipulation and, creating other beings to be various things, resources. Let's just put that in the big, in the big category of resources, which could be, brought down into different, again, subcategories. The little grays basically are always shepherded by a tall gray like this, which can range from 7 to 9 feet tall. And, I've had up close and personal experiences with the tall and the short and other beings as well. This being, this is a head of Ahriman, carved by Dr. Rudolf Steiner. And Steiner is a very interesting one. I've seen these beings. These beings were outside of our camper in the Nevada desert by Area 51. They didn't enter, they were just monitoring us. There was 2 of them, looked exactly like this. Exactly like this. And it was very, very, definitely caused a feeling of apprehension. And then I saw this guy when I was 7 years old. And this guy came to me 2 nights, very much a being of this type of species, came to me two consecutive nights by the side of my bed. Definitely caused a lot of concern for myself. And then we have Beth, who is our buddy, who we've worked with in multiple lives. And Beth is an Egyptian god of many things, as they're labeling him here a god of war and domestic protection. Absolutely, domestic protection, predominantly serving the divine feminine, mothers and children during childbirth. And Beth is working with us in this life as well. Now, in reality, Beth is an extraterrestrial from Orion.
So there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad, but you're the one who has to decide what is going on in your own life and to process this information and to pick through it and determine, what is going to be helpful for you, what is going to move you on. Now, I can share with you when it comes to the sleep paralysis, things of that nature. Very important to take a look at your diet, take a look at, are you opening any doors with different substances, things of that nature, because that can pull you down and put you in the lower frequency where you're being attacked more often. So it is up to us to help raise our frequency up as much as possible to get out of that space and look at things in a way where we can see things more lightheartedly.
Yes, and Beth is all about that. He is all about lightheartedness and having a good sense of humor. He is a wonderful guy, and he's very, very joyful, and wants people to have a good time when they're in incarnation, because we are. It's not all sober and somber. Well, in these times, we need to be sober, but we don't have to be somber. And yes, the doorway to the dark side control in these times especially is through the use of substances that alter our consciousness in the way that we could be stepped into. These are very dangerous times to be imbibing in too much alcohol or into anything that's mind altering, really, of a lower frequency, and that includes all the BIGFAR (A), because that does absolutely open doors. Absolutely. And I would keep sage in the bedroom. And honestly, we do. I would sage every night before bed. Every single night before bed, I would just light the sage stick and just walk in a circle and set the intention, visualize your house and your property totally sealed in protective light. You could visualize it as golden. You could visualize it as magenta or violet. All those higher frequencies will drive away all the darker energies. And you could invite in only your benevolent guides, only those beings that truly have your best interest in mind, to protect you and to look over you while you're sleeping. So again, I would definitely sage every single day.
Yes, and keep your thoughts up, keep your energy up, keep the vibrations high, because remember, thoughts are things and we have to put them in a better perspective. And if you're really, really down, try to write things out so that and make it deliberate. Be very deliberate about looking for the silver lining. There's always a silver lining in everything.
Absolutely. So we hope this you guys found interesting. Any questions, any comments, any other things you want us to cover, make sure to write them down in the comments. We look forward to them. May you guys be protected. May you grow every day in higher frequency and vibrations. Much love. God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.